You're watching South Asia Newsline, and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Wednesday, the 14th of January. India and US discuss trade, exporters cautious over Iran tariff uncertainty. Bangladesh is hurt by gunfire, landmines near Myanmar border. And Sri Lanka failing conflict, sexual violence survivors, UN report. And now for all the details. India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar held talks with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio on trade, critical minerals and energy on Tuesday. India and the United States have set a target of more than doubling bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030, while New Delhi has pledged to buy more US energy and defense equipment to help narrow the trade gap, even as trade talks last year failed to result in a deal. Rubio welcomed India's move to end decades of state control over nuclear power and expressed interest in expanding US-India civil nuclear cooperation. The leaders also discussed ongoing trade negotiations, regional development, and reaffirmed their shared commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. Meanwhile, India's exporters remain cautious after US President Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on countries trading with Iran. Exports of Indian basmati rice to Iran have nearly stalled. Iran is India's largest rice market, with basmati accounting for nearly two-thirds of exports. India's exports to Iran, mainly rice and pharmaceuticals, fell to $1.24 billion in 2024 to 2025, while imports include fresh and dried fruits.
What we are dealing with Iran are the goods which are humanitarian in nature, primarily food products as well as the pharmaceuticals. So we are not unduly worried about that, but the kind of sweeping statement which has been now put into the media has created a lot of uncertainty. We expect that, and when the executive order is issued, probably some more clarity will come on that. I think a bigger problem for the export, which is not only related to India but for all countries, is the fact that Iran currency is depreciating very fast. Now with this kind of further sanction coming in, probably that will further go down.
The government of India has dismissed claims circulating on Pakistan-based social media that New Delhi has suspended trade with Afghanistan due to unrest in Iran. Calling the reports fabricated propaganda, authorities clarified that bilateral trade continues as usual. In a post on X, PIB Fact Check stated that no such directive had been issued and urged the public to rely only on official sources. According to official data, India's exports to Afghanistan during the 2024 to 2025 financial year stood at over $318 million, while imports were valued at more than $689 million, reflecting continued commercial engagement. In a significant diplomatic development, Afghanistan's Taliban government has appointed its first senior official, Noor Ahmad Noor, to lead its embassy in New Delhi since returning to power in 2021. The embassy said Mr. Noor has already held meetings with Indian officials, with both sides emphasizing the importance of strengthening Afghanistan-India relations. India has not only officially recognized the Taliban government, but the move signals deepening engagement. Moving on, life in POJK is grinding to a halt as prolonged power outages disrupt homes and businesses. With no fixed electricity schedule, public anger is rising and protests are intensifying. We have a report.
Amid mounting political discontent, residents of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir are grappling with prolonged and unpredictable power outages. In several areas, protests have been held against the electricity department, but there is no respite. Frequent shutdowns are disrupting daily life and crippling local businesses, deepening public frustration. Locals complain authorities have failed to provide even a basic power schedule. They warn continued neglect could trigger wider unrest and fuel anti-government protests.
के कारण बिजली नहीं आ रही, मोबाइल वाले बैठे कितने मिनट तक लोगों का काम करना होगा, बिजली नहीं,
क्योंकि बिजली की जो टाइमिंग है वो बिल्कुल कोई बराबर टाइमिंग इन्होंने नहीं रखी हुई। सुबह जिस वक्त लोग आते हैं नाश्ते के टाइम में बिजली बंद की होती है, शाम को जब ये जा रहे होते हैं तब भी बिजली बंद होती है, दिन के टाइम जब कारोबार का टाइम होता है बहुत ज़्यादा वक्त में इन्हें बिजली लेके जाते हैं, जिसकी वजह से बहुत ज़्यादा कारोबार मुतासर होते हैं। और अभी एक बंदे ने काम ही जो है बिजली के ज़रिए करना है, चार्जिंग करनी है, मोबाइल करनी है या इजी पैसे का काम करना है, तो वो किस तरह से उनको काम करेगा?
The failures in infrastructure and governance have fueled widespread frustration among residents, with growing demands for systemic reforms to end the cycles of poverty and neglect in PJK.
And after the cross-border fighting between Myanmar's Arakan army and Rohingya armed groups left at least 2 Bangladeshi civilians injured, residents of frontier town of Teknaf in Bangladesh staged a protest on Tuesday. In 2 separate incidents, a 9-year-old girl Hujaifa Afnan and a 28-year-old man Muhammad Hanif got critically injured and are now fighting for their lives, officials and witnesses have informed. The clashes reportedly erupted near the Bangladesh-Myanmar border earlier this week, sending bullets and mortar shells into Bangladeshi territory, increasing tensions in several nearby villages. The Arakan army is an ethnic militia based in Myanmar's Rakhine state and has seized control of much of the state in recent months. Rohingya armed groups have since stepped up resistance against the Arakan army, triggering frequent clashes near the border. Bangladeshi authorities have stepped up patrols and warned residents to stay indoors. Meanwhile, the border guard Bangladesh has also arrested nearly 50 alleged Rohingya gunmen.
তুলে যখন মগ লইয়া দেয় গেলই আর উসুলের যখন মারামারি দিয়ে তইলে নবিসুন করলো মারামারি দিয়ে তইলে আর তখন একটা গারম মাঝে ন তো বাঁধা বি যাবি ঘরোয়া তইলে আর ফোন সাইতে গিয়ে মানে আর নয় হইয়ে আর সাই তাই গিয়ে তাই যাইতে তার হওয়া তখন মেডিতল গুলি আছে তখন হইনে পারে বুম বুম আছে তো হইনে পারে তার হওয়া যাইতে ঠেং ফুজন তার ফুরি আর হওয়া ফান যদি আর হওয়া বেশি গরিব অতিরিক্ত গরিব আর হওয়া আনিলে খাই পারি আর আনি আনি পারি আর আনিলা গরিব বাজি
আমরা আপাততে ঝুঁকির মধ্যে আছি মনে করেন আমার একটা মেয়ে বর্তমানে এই যে বুলেট আমার মেয়ে যে গুলিটা খাইছে খাইয়া সিটাং মেডিকেলে আছে ওইখান থেকে নাকি ঢাকায় নিয়ে যাইতেছে এটা আমি খুশি কিন্তু আমরা আপাততে বেশি ঝুঁকিতে আছি এখানে মায়ানমারের আরাকান আর্মি কোন সময় এখানে আবার গুলি করে আমরা মনে করেন ওইখানে আবার নাকি আমাদের বেরিবানের ওই পাশে আবার মাইন বসাইছে হেস্তল মাইন
And according to a new report by the UN Human Rights Office on Tuesday, conflict-related sexual violence in Sri Lanka remains largely unaddressed. The report said more than 15 years after the end of the conflict between government forces and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, which lasted from 1983 to 2009, survivors are still denied justice, recognition and reparations. The report titled "We Lost Everything, Even Hope for Justice" draws on more than a decade of UN monitoring and consultations with survivors, civil society and experts. Among its findings, the report notes that survivors, women and men alike, face intimidation, surveillance and stigma, leading to widespread underreporting and a near absence of effective remedies. It calls on the Sri Lankan government to take immediate and concrete steps to publicly acknowledge past sexual violence committed by state forces and others and to issue a formal apology. Sexual violence in conflict constitutes a serious violation of international law, which may amount to war crimes or crime against humanity, UNHCR spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence said in Geneva.
Beyond the shocking cruelty of the abuses, including rape, sexual mutilation, forced nudity, and public degradation described by survivors, many felt that such attacks were intended to cause lasting trauma and break down communities. As one survivor put it, sexual violence is a torture that never stops. The paper finds that stigma extends to their families and children born of rape have been labelled and discriminated against. Communities remain fractured by silence, fear and unresolved trauma. It calls on the government of Sri Lanka to take immediate and concrete steps to publicly acknowledge past sexual violence committed by state forces and others and to issue a formal apology.
Millions of Hindus across India marked Makar Sankranti, Pongal and Uttarayan with holy river dips, temple prayers and harvest rituals, reflecting deep faith and cultural unity. From the sacred banks of Ganga to homes and temples in the south, the festivities highlighted gratitude for nature, spiritual renewal and India's rich diversity of traditions. Take a look.
Millions of Hindus across India came together to mark the harvest festivals of Makar, Sankranti, Pongal, and Uttarayan, filling riverbanks and temples with prayer, color, and devotion. In northern India, large crowds gathered along sacred rivers to take a holy dip, a key ritual of Makar Sankranti, which this year coincided with the Magh Mela, a month-long spiritual gathering dedicated to Lord Brahma, the Hindu god of creation. For devotees, the ritual bath is more than tradition. Many believe that entering the sacred waters during the Magh Mela washes away past sins and brings spiritual renewal. Pilgrims from across the country converge on the banks of River Ganga, a site revered in Hindu scriptures as the place where drops of a divine elixir once fell. That ancient belief continues to draw millions, turning the riverfront into a powerful expression of faith, hope, and collective prayer.
यहाँ पर जो मकर संक्रांति का पावन पर्व है, भगवान सूर्य जो है आज उत्तरायण होते हैं, मकर राशि में प्रवेश करते हैं, है ना। तो ये मकर संक्रांति का जो पावन पर्व है ये अनादिकाल से चला आ रहा है और आज गंगा स्नान का महत्व, पुण्य क्षेत्र में दान करने का महत्व बहुत अधिक बढ़ जाता है। और यहाँ पर आप देख रहे हैं बड़े दूर दूर से श्रद्धालु आ रखे हैं। तो इस गंगा तट पर, इस पावन भूमि पर, जहाँ पर जो है स्वयं अमृत के बूंदे जो है यहाँ पर गिरे थे, जिस वजह से जो है यहाँ पर ये पुण्य क्षेत्र कहा जाता है।
Meanwhile, in southern India, Hindus celebrated Pongal, with families and devotees gathering at temples and in their homes for special prayers and rituals. Widely observed by the Tamil community, the festival is a way of expressing gratitude to the sun, nature, and farm animals for a successful harvest. These festivities reflect the deep link between agriculture, astronomy, and faith, and highlight the many ways harvest festivals are observed across India's diverse regions. The most common form of celebrating Makar Sankranti, or Uttarayan as it is called in Gujarat, is kite flying. The festival marks the sun's transition from Sagittarius to Capricorn, heralding the beginning of Uttarayan, when winters begin turning to summers.
That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.